All right, now today we're going to set up our scraping infrastructure. This scraping infrastructure will be crucial for when we start running our cold email campaigns. In month one, we're going to scrape 4,000 emails. But I want you to know that the infrastructure that you choose, because we're going to have some options, is going to last a lot longer than just 4,000 emails. Theoretically, you'll be able to scrape upwards of 10 to 15,000 emails per month using each of these scraping methods. And I've chosen specifically the cheapest ones available. You can definitely get leads a lot faster and a lot easier if you're willing to spend a little bit more money. But in this guide, I've just chosen a few very simple and cheap and affordable options for all of us. Now, a quick disclaimer, there are a variety of options here, and every one of these options has pros and every one of these options has cons. I want you to know that it's very difficult to scrape emails for free. Emails are one of those things where when you spend a tiny bit of money, it will save you a massive, disproportionate amount of time. The difference between spending 0 cents per lead and spending 1 cent per lead is not just the 1 cent, it is dozens of hours or even weeks of progress, usually whatever one's larger. So despite the fact that you have to pay for email addresses and leads, know that this is one of those you got to spend money to make money sort of arrangements. The money that you spend here is probably the best money you will ever spend in business, much more so than the vast majority of software platforms you're using and all the various books on business that you could possibly read. This is the one that's going to get you talking to real people. Okay, so personalization. Here's the secret in 2024. You need to make use of AI personalization if you want cold email to work well for you. Now, I and a couple of other people on YouTube have popularized this process. It did not used to be anywhere near as popular as it is now. But when you compare to the results people were getting pre-personalization or are still getting without personalizing their campaigns, it is a night and day difference. Your logical question is going to be, well, Nick, what the hell is personalization? And what personalization is using publicly available data to make your outreach seem a lot warmer and a lot more friendly. The impression that the prospects will get if they receive an AI personalized email is no longer, oh shit, another cold email. It's, damn, this person did their research. Do I know this guy? Pre-personalization, average reply rates are maybe 2% or so. Post-personalization, it's not uncommon to get reply rates of 5 to 10% or more, assuming that you do a very good job at it. And you're not always going to do a good job, but it is what it is. My best campaign has had a reply rate of 25%. Now, those were some special circumstances. Still, that was some very crazy shit. So on average, what that means is if you do personalization, you're going to go about 2.5 times as far as non-personalization. So the value that you're getting is like 2.5 times the dollars that you're spending, meaning that AI personalization is basically a must, especially if you want to do this very cost effectively like I do. Now, here's how personalization works in a nutshell. You're probably wondering, what the hell does this actually mean? Here's what it is. When you scrape your lead, you're going to do it on a platform that includes a bunch of additional information about the person. So you're not just going to get their first name. You're not just going to get their last name. You're not just going to get their email address. You're going to get bio, description, summary, job history, images, profile pictures, all that sort of stuff. So you'll get information like that from platforms like Instagram or LinkedIn or TikTok or platforms where there's some type of user-generated content. And the real trick to this is you'll then send these customized fields, the ones that the user makes as part of their profile or whatnot. And you'll send these to AI, and you'll do so with a prompt like, hey, use this information to create a short one-line introduction for a cold email. AI will then take all that information, and then you have to train it right and use prompts and stuff, which I have examples of and blueprints that I've attached. But you will then basically generate an icebreaker, more or less. You call this a variable called icebreaker, maybe personalization, and then you store that in your spreadsheet or wherever you're storing this data. And then in your email copy, instead of just having the email, you actually use the variable called personalization or the variable called icebreaker, whatever you called it in the previous step. Now, the rest of your email is templated. And the value here, because a lot of people have tried fully customizing these, are that you get the best of both worlds. You get a customized introduction, which grabs the person's interest, but then you get a templated offer, which allows you to test offer combinations and do split tests and stuff like that, which I'll cover a little bit more later on in the course. So here's a real example of copy that I sent. Hey, there's some personalization up here. And it says, I know this is a long shot, but I build project management systems specifically for creative agencies. I did this in my own agency once in copy and scaled revenue to $92K a month at 50% margins. I'd like to see if I could achieve similar results for you. I could do this up front and at no cost. And if you like it, and if it makes sense, we could work together long-term. I'd pay for it all myself. And assuming you're in, I get back to you in 72 hours. So with a video plus a link to a system. Would this make sense for you? If so, do you want me just to go ahead or would you rather chat first? I'm kind of awkward over the phone, but we can chat if you're game. P.S. If you're not sure who I am or I'm skeptical, please Google me. We'll explain. Thanks for the time. And then I do my full name so they can Google me. This is one of 5 million different email variations that you'd send, but it does hit a couple of very specific points. The real high ROI part, though, isn't the magic down here. The magic down here only works because I have magic at the top too, because of the personalization. Because when you combine the two, when you combine like a warm introduction that makes it seem like I know the person, with this sort of like templated offer and templated pitch, the results are so much stronger than if you did alone. If I did this alone, I probably would have got like a 1% response. I'm pretty sure the campaign got at least a 5% response, maybe more. I'd have to check. Now, notice how we're using personalization as the intro and then templating out the rest of the email. Basically, what will happen is this personalization variable is going to get filled in with something like, hey, Peter, love what you do, man. I'm a big fan of your podcast and recruitment, and I find your journey from healthcare to the agency space really interesting. I figured I'd reach out. If you receive that introduction right now, and if all of that information were relevant to you, your name was Peter, of course you'd click on it. You'd be like, oh, damn, okay, I probably know this person somehow. Let me give this a quick tap, right? That is how personalization functions. Here's some very brief replies from the above campaign. I sent the above campaign to like 400 people or so. So I don't really know how many. I don't know. I mean, I received way more than these. I just put these in as examples. As you see, a lot of them are like very positive. They're apologetic for not getting back to me earlier. They give me times. They thank me so much for the outreach. They're just very happy. So feel free to read those if you'd like. And I received something like another 10 positive replies to that campaign, which were all variations of the above. About a third of them were qualified. The other 2/3 of people that were just interested in learning more about me, my outreach, my approach. A lot of those people were qualified as well, honestly. It's just you would have had to go and push it a couple more steps. And you could probably sell them the same system that I'm using to sell them very easily. So yeah, and even when people aren't interested, you'll still receive really warm responses. This is somebody that like wasn't down to work with me for this, but they said, thanks for reaching out. I typically don't reply to cold emails, but I and my aging ego appreciate the fact you did some homework. I'm sorry, but I'm semi-retired now, so I don't have a need, but I appreciate your approach and wish you lots of luck. Like, see how warm that is, right? You could easily segue this into like a review or a testimonial or a connection on social media or a LinkedIn post or something like that. Now imagine if instead of sending it to 400 people, I'd sent that to 40,000 people with similar 5 to 10% reply rates. I mean, the results would be stupid, right? You'd receive over 1,000 positive replies, realistically, many of which I could close. And you could send to 40,000 people pretty dang quick if you had the mailbox capacity. The infrastructure we're going to talk about today, I say build, but there's really nothing to build. We're just going to connect 2 or 3 platforms together. Will let us do that. Now, here are a few options that work as of right now. It's September the 11th. In 2024, this is what's currently working. If you're watching this at a future date and these do not work, then just let me know, and I'm more than happy to swap this out with something else. At the end of each of these, I'm going to include the cost, and cold email moves fast. So just know that, the goal isn't to make you understand a specific scraping method. The goal is just to give you a bunch of scraping methods that you learn what makes a scraping method. And then should any of these become validated in the future, you can just make up your own scraping method really easy. So the first is LinkedIn to Phantom Buster to any mail finder. LinkedIn is where you're going to get the leads from with user-generated content. Phantom Buster is where you are going to scrape the leads, so I'll cover in a second. Then any mail finder is going to enrich these with email addresses. Now, Sales Navigator is a premium feature on LinkedIn. It lets you search for people on their platform using keywords and advanced filters. If you've never seen it before, it looks something like this. You can type in a search query like creative agency. You can put in some parameters like 1 to 10, head count in New York, that sort of thing. And that would correspond to a search for creative agencies, the 1 to 10 employees in New York. Now, your filters can get much more advanced than that. This is just like a quick little example for us all. But tens of thousands of people use Sales Nav every single day, probably 100,000 or something. The thing is, most people aren't using it to their full potential. The problem with LinkedIn is it just doesn't let you export that data. You can only use the data that you see here, like physically right in front of you on this list. You can't export that to another platform. So basically, you just have to work within the confines of LinkedIn. And that makes it really hard to do all the cool shit that we want to do, like enrich emails and customize and that sort of stuff, right? The solution to this is a platform called Phantom Buster. Now, there's many platforms that do this. It's not just Phantom Buster, but I like Phantom Buster the best. Basically, what they do is they run a LinkedIn-specific service that lets you export about 2,500 of these leads per day, which is about $75K per month full utilization, if you think about it that way. They have a module called Sales Navigator Search Export, which allows you just to pump in a cookie, basically, and then just go from there. So if I were to go to LinkedIn, and I were to go to Sales Navigator, there's one right here. Sorry, it's this one here, Sales Navigator. And that allows you to just put in a URL. So the same URL that this search got up here, you can't really see the URL bar, but just imagine that you can. You'd pump that into this phantom, which is just their word for scraper, add your cookie, and then it would actually go and it would like scrape all of that information for you by spinning up a bunch of like fake browsers for you. The way that they do it is a little bit beyond the means of the course, but the point that I'm making is this just allows you to get all of that data into a spreadsheet. Now that it's in a spreadsheet, it's yours. It's no longer LinkedIn's data, it's your data. You can do whatever the hell you want with it. So once you've scraped these leads, you'll still have another problem. You'll have all of their information, their first name, last name, company name, the job history, the reviews that they have, the testimonials, the summaries, the bios, the descriptions. You're going to have all that information except for the email address because LinkedIn doesn't store these email addresses natively. So what do? Well, now we need to take all this information and feed it into an email enrichment platform. And turns out there are multiple platforms out there that will take a first name, last name, company name, maybe a website, and they will use it to generate the email address. They will test a bunch of variations really quickly, send requests to some mail servers, and then they'll figure out which ones exist and which ones work. So enter any mail finder, which is one of them. This will use AI and web scraping and a proprietary pipeline to find the emails of leads that you supply them. And it works about 40, maybe 50% of the time, depending on the information that you provide. The value there is once you have all of this stuff set up, then all you need to do is just take these leads with all the info and you just need to pump them into AI and then run the personalization thing that I was talking to you about earlier. Once you have that, you have the icebreaker or the personalization, and then that's just a spreadsheet that you import into your cold email platform. Problem solved. Using this method, if you can get 75,000 leads per month out of Phantom Buster, and then you can enrich 30 to 40,000 of them, you can actually scrape upwards of 30K per month, which is pretty sweet. Now, here are the costs. You need a LinkedIn Sales Navigator account, which is the time of this writing is about $90. You can also buy these for cheaper if you were to use like less legal sources, Black Hat World, for instance. A lot of them, they have coupons and stuff that make them really cheap. You need a Phantom Buster account, which is about $70 a month right now. And then you need an Any Mail Finder account. And right now the cost is about 1 cent to 2 cents per enriched email. You also have to spend token costs on your large language model provider because we need AI to do customization, right? And every time that you spend a certain number of tokens, it'll bill you a certain amount. That tends to be very low. It's like $15 per million tokens, which is about 800,000 words or something. But still, as you can imagine, it could rack up if you're doing a ton of emails. So this ends up being about $170 a month plus whatever your Any Mail Finder credits are. I'm not going to say this is the cheapest thing in the whole wide world, but if you want a thriving, high quality pipeline with 30K leads per month, you can definitely do this. You can do this really straightforwardly and really easily. Okay, so the second approach is substantially cheaper. I picked this just because I wanted to give people a way to do things. Instead of being $170 a month, it'll be a lot less. This uses a platform called Apollo. You guys are unfamiliar with how Apollo works. Apollo's like basically a lead database where you can buy a certain number of leads every single month. And then just like with LinkedIn, you can export these leads using a scraper, which is pretty sweet. So you can go and then you can search a list. And if I want to do the same thing, I type creative agency here. I have a bunch of people that are now like creative agencies and that sort of thing, which is pretty cool. And then what you do is Apollo is your data source. But if you were to try and just buy these leads using Apollo, it would cost you, if you wanted to export $37,500, it costs you at least $1,300, which would be stupid. So what you do instead is you use Appify, which is a scraping tool that allows you to do something like this. Apollo Lead Scraper. And Apollo Lead Scraper costs $45 a month, and it allows you to export basically an unlimited number of leads from Apollo, which is pretty awesome. Just a little browser automation platform. What this allows you to do, which is add up to about 30,000 leads per month, which is pretty cool. And then you can sign up for free to Apollo as many times as you want, just with a different business email address. The total cost of this process is something like $80 a month instead of up here, which is $170 a month. The main difference is you don't have the LinkedIn profiles right away. Like you don't have the bio, the description, all that stuff. So what you can do is you can use another app called Derek-App. And Derek-App basically allows you to enrich this data now with a LinkedIn profile instead. So I think you guys are kind of getting the point. The point is that there are a variety of very interesting different software platforms out there, and all of them do slightly different chunks of the process that is needed to enrich. But basically the point is if any of these one platforms don't work for whatever reason, you can also just hot swap this with something else. You know for sure that you need a way to get user information, you need first name, last name, whatever. then you need a way to, enrich the email addresses, and then you need a way to like get profiles, right? So as long as you know that at the back of your mind, you can find basically any approach, and you're not just restricted to these. They're, $80 a month cheapest. You can actually go make your own that are substantially cheaper as well. So here's a master list of just a bunch of other approaches that I know of. You could get a list of websites from a Google search results using something like Apify's search result scraper. And then once you have that, you could send every website domain to make.com. Using make.com, you could then feed the HTML of the website into a regex. Regex is a regular expression. It just allows you to extract email addresses in a specific format from the HTML of the website. You can then personalize this with data from the website. That's pretty sweet. Or you could scrape thousands of Instagram profiles using this Phantom Buster Instagram profile scraper. Once you've done that, you could look for email addresses in the bio, and then you could personalize this with data from the profile, right? Data from images. You could use AI to like digest an image and give you some information about it. You do tons of shit. You could use local Google My Business listings using Apify's Google Maps scraper. This is now something that allows you to extract Google Maps listings really easily, and it allows you to then personalize the data with the website information or the Google My Business listing. You could scrape thousands of TikTok profiles using a TikTok scraper, do the same thing. You could buy leads using Instantly's lead finder. Instantly actually like sells you leads, and the numbers aren't amazing, but what you could do is you could take that and then use their lead enrichment tool to find LinkedIn descriptions, which is pretty cool. Then now you have everything you need to customize, to personalize with AI. You could scrape Twitter profiles, and then basically more generally, you could just feed any first name, last name, and company name or domain name into these email enrichment platforms like AnyMailFinder or Drop Contact, and you're going to get somewhere between 40 to 50% results. So long as you have a method that lets you generate contacts, you can leverage it. Okay, so now that all of this education is out of the way, and boy, was that lengthy. If you guys are still with me, congratulations. Now that the education's out of the way, what is your task? Your task is to set up your pipeline and try it on a batch of 25 leads. I'm not doing more than 25 because odds are you're going to be paying for it. So we just want to verify this works on one run. What that means is if you've chosen the first route, the route with LinkedIn and Phantom Buster and AnyMailFinder, you need to buy SalesNav unless you already have it. Then you need to create a sample search for some people in the niche of your choice. Remember, you have 3 niches. Feed the URL into Phantom Buster, set the number of results to 50 or 60 or so, because the email is going to chop that in half, and then feed the output of that into AnyMailFinder. And if you wanted to, you'd go Sales Navigator LinkedIn. You go over here, and then you would have to start your free trial. You could check out the different plans over here if you wanted to. The point that I'm making is it's time for you to sign up for some shit. Same thing with Phantom Buster, same thing with AnyMailFinder. If you guys could find discounts, then please do. Join Secret is a service that I use quite often for discounts. I'm not seeing anything specifically for Sales Navigator here. I don't think I'm seeing anything I am seeing something for AnyMailFinder. You can probably get some discounts here. There's no promo code for this. Phantom Buster usually has a discount, 25% off any plans for 12 months. It's pretty cool. But the point is, it's time for the rubber to hit the road and, sign up to these platforms, get yourself 25 email addresses. And once you have 25 email addresses, you verify that this approach works on basically an infinite number of email addresses and you're good to go. Once you have those 25 leads, then personalize it using a flow like the one I attached as a blueprint below. This is your lead personalizer. I've attached this as a make scenario. So if you're using something else, then you're going to have to find a way to translate this into that automation platform. I've also added a few notes to this that explain how all of this stuff works. It's quite straightforward. If I download this and then open this up, I'll show you guys what you need to do. The way that this is meant to work is you basically have to, you have a spreadsheet here, which is going to be the spreadsheet of leads, and it's going to be formatted as a LinkedIn Sales Navigator export from Phantom Buster. And then you just have an AI prompt, and the purpose of this AI prompt is basically just to personalize. So write a personalized icebreaker to be used in a cold email, use the provided data from LinkedIn as contacts, be succinct to casual, and use a very Spartan tone of voice. Then I just have a bunch of training examples, basically. Then once you're done, what I want you to do is bookmark each of these resources. So if you're using LinkedIn to Phantom Buster and AnyMailFinder, bookmark all 3 of them. If you're using Apollo to Apify to Derek to, I don't even remember what that whole flow is. Apollo, Apify, Derek, or Phantom Buster, bookmark all 3 or 4 of those because you're going to need to use them basically every 3 or 4 days from here on out until we scrape those 4,000 leads. And it's very important that we scrape these now or as quickly as humanly possible, because we need to make sure that all these leads are perfectly sanitized before we start the cold email campaign. And as a reminder, we're going to start that on day 21 because we need to warm up email addresses for 21 days. I hope that this is helpful. If you have any questions about anything, then obviously feel free to drop them in the school. But yeah, this is going to be by far one of the highest ROI ways to generate leads that you will currently find in 2024. Get out there, scrape those 25 leads, and on to the next one.